Hey guys, this is Eric Weingner with Weingner Racing. This video's got some really cool stuff in it. It's got the 18-degree AFR big block Chevy Magnum head. I'm going to flow it. I'm going to show you some of the differences between it and some other SR20 style heads, and it's really cool. But before I do that, I'm probably going to make some people angry, and you're probably going to want to unsubscribe. I would like for you to stay subscribed, but this is going to make some people mad. And part of me is like, if those are the people you lost, those are really ones you don't want to have anyway. I've hit my limit. I'm going to tell you, I straight up hit my limit. So in the last 5 calls I've had today, 3 of them, I've hit my limit. So I was at my son's swim meet, so my phone goes nuts. I'm sure I'm not the only person. If I'm not busy, phone never rings. If I've got something going on, it rings right off the hook. But here are the 2 things that drive me nuts. 1, and this is a big one. If you bought anything from me, and I primarily sell heads and manifolds, of course I port those, cams, parts, whatever, you get free tech service. You call me up, I'll answer any questions. Like, what goes with this head? What intake manifold fits this? Blah, blah, blah. I'll answer it. What rocker arms? I'll answer it. However, if you bought something from somebody else, not me, don't call me up or email me up to ask tech questions about it. There are 700 videos I have right now that were probably answered most of those questions anyway, and that's for free, except for you got to make it through a commercial. Most of the questions you ask are in the videos. And the next question, whenever I say that, you're like, which one? Search. Why do I have to be the labor for you? You didn't even pay me to buy you whatever product you got your ass the question on. So if you brought a product from someone else, don't call me for the tech support. You paid some company, they should answer it. But if you're like, they're not very good. 1, think about the next time whenever you go to order. Or here's what you can do. And the link in the description for this video, there'll be a link where you could purchase $25 a tech service. And what I'll do is I will answer whatever question you have, whether it be about a product you bought from me or someone else. You're like, oh my gosh, $25, you grifter. No, I'm a one-man shop. I don't have a tech line. I've got me. So when you call other companies, maybe they got someone they're paying to be tech guy. I'm not doing that. It's me. It's right here. This is the guy. So it ain't free. Life isn't free. Sorry. So yeah, it's $25. So it's going to be. And I'll get that question answered. So I know it seems unfair, but you're like, it's an easy question. Why don't you just answer it? I didn't sell it to you. They should be able to help you with that. The second thing, if you didn't plan well for this race season, don't get mad at me. Don't. Because this is the second thing, and this happened 3 times in the last week or so. So if you call and say, hey, what heads you got in stock? I'll say, well, I've got a set of Dragon Slayers for a small block Chevy in stock. They're $4,500. Don't go, oh my gosh, they're so expensive. Yeah, they're expensive to make, and I keep them on the shelf because they're expensive. I don't keep millions of dollars in inventory because I don't want to pay taxes on it, and you never know what's going to sell. That ain't me, okay? Sorry, ain't me. So you don't get upset with that. And then if you're like, okay, well, do you have anything cheaper? Yeah, I do. I do absolutely have it. Nothing in stock. Everything's made to order. So if you also call up and you're like, well, how long would it take you then to port XYZ heads I have? And I say 4 to 5 months because I said in October, I said it in September, November, December. Hey, if you want your stuff ported, you need to get it in now. You need your stuff ported, you need to get it now. You didn't have it in. You didn't send it in. You didn't plan, okay? Or you didn't have the money, which is fine. But what you don't get to do, because this happened, and if I say it's 4 to 5 months, the thing you don't get to say is, God damn, that's a long wait. Look, I'm not a super religious person. I believe in God, but I'm not going to push my beliefs on you. That makes for a crappy religious person. But what I will not tolerate is someone saying GD to me on the phone, because the next thing you hear when you say that, because of a wait time's too much, because you didn't plan, will be click. Okay? That's not how we play it. Your bad planning doesn't make my bad planning. The reason why it's a wait is because there's customers that did plan. And you're like, well, I didn't mean to. I just didn't have any money. I get it. Should have paid the deposit. That's what people do. Or reserve a spot. A lot of people do that too. It's $100 to reserve a spot. Then it takes 2 weeks for your stuff to get done. Part of the reason why there's a wait. But I know I went a little bit long on this. I know I probably lost some viewers. But if you're in a business, you'd understand this. Because I find that totally disrespectful. 1, to ask me a tech support and product I didn't sell. Unless you want to pay for that $25 fee. And 2, you do not get to do a GD on me because you didn't plan. That's just not how I play it. And I'm not going to say Christianity and any of that. That has nothing to do with it. You just do not get to do that to me. Some people have limits, and you found mine. So that's enough of that. Let's get to the tech. Okay, here's the head. This is the AFR, and as you can tell, 18-degree Magnum, and this is the big block Chevy head. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with these nomenclatures that go with this, just bear with me. This is what I call like an SR20 style head. And in case you're wondering, where did that nomenclature even come from? Well, Brodix would probably be the first one to introduce that type of head. And this is a Brodix head. And if you see there, it says SR. Well, that actually stands for Slick Rick. This part of the legend is a little back for story for you. Back when they were running Texas Pro Stock, a guy named Slick Rick, who actually still produces heads on his own, he's working for a company, and they developed this head for that class because at the time they had to run a conventional head, and it could be 20 degrees if I remember right. And he took this conventional head, he moved the valve spacing so it's not like a standard big block Chevy. It's moved, but kept the flange here the same, well, except for raising it up and adding more material and stuff, and did all that. And that head was the SR20, the first one. Probably been out for about 10 years. And there's been many variations since. So what I mean by that is Brodix obviously sells a CNC program for the SR20. This is my CRC program for the SR20. But there's also variations. So this one is the same valve spacing that the SR20 style head came with. And that's the same valve spacing that the AFR head here has. And that's why I call it the SR20 style head. So this AFR Magnum head that we're talking about, it's the SR20 style layout. So what it has is the way its spacing is like the SR20. Now there's a few differences which I'll get to in this. So for instance, this is an 18 degree. And the original SR20s were 20 degrees, except for some custom companies like say MBE, even Slick Rick, because he had his own. He had some where they rolled to 18. And Brodix currently, and this has only been out for about a year on their end, has a SR18, which is an 18 degree, but for the most part, it's 20 degrees. The first one that really commercialized that came out with 18 degree was AFR. Now this is their own design, which I'll go over. So a couple of the features for this, it's an 18 degree. It's actually raised up more than your standard SR20. So that port location I just showed you on the SR20, this one's about a tenth higher as measured. And because of that, so that you can run a standard manifold, because these SR20 heads, you can run a regular manifold with. To make up, because they raised up the intake port, they added more material, which you could see this way. So the regular manifold should fit. Now, AFR actually makes a manifold to fit this, in case you're wondering, because you still have to deal with the tri-narrow rail across the side. However, they've got a raised up intake port, but you're still able to use your, standard intake manifold. Now, the ports, they look like, oh my gosh, they look big. They're actually tiny. So they measure 456 cc's. And if you just did off cc's, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so big. This runner is much, much longer than your standard big block Chevy head because it's raised up. And as you raise it up, the port itself gets longer and it takes up more volume. Hence, you can ignore the volume because if you look at the areas on the inside, they're not as big as what you think. Just to kind of show you, I've got this. This is a gasket for an AFR 315, 335 head, right? This is the really common one. If you look at how much, I'm just going to try to hold it up here so that you can see. It's actually a little bit smaller than that. So when I say the cross sections are small, the cross sections are not small, but they're not SR20 style big. Mine is big. This is not as big. So it sounds big because of the cc's, but it isn't. It's an 18 degree valve angle, and they have a 2400 intake valve and a 1800 exhaust valve. If you order the stainless steel valves, you're going to get them, they look like this. This has not one, get the camera to focus here. Try it again, there we go. Nope, it has two back cuts. So this is your seat, and that's your two back cuts. And this is a 50 degree intake seat. So commonly when you get heads, they're 45. This is a 50, and it's got two back cuts. And what's unique about this valve is insanely long, 6.035 inches long. Why? Because the port's raised up. You raise the port, you gotta make the valve itself longer because otherwise it's gonna be choking it down there. Also, this is unique to AFR. If you look here, this groove is a bead groove. Most of the times when you get 11/32 valves, they are square grooves. The ones that come from AFR are B groove. These just take a different lock. These actually make the valve stronger. Now, they're not the only ones that do that. Typically, when you run 5/16 stuff or 8mm stuff, we've got a bead. But for the most part, square grooves are really common on 11/32 stuff. So these have 11/32 stems, but still they have the bead, so it makes it actually stronger. Strong valve that way. Their exhaust, this is the 1-800. It's a tulip design, you can clearly see that. And it also has the bead groove, just makes things stronger. And that's for this part. As you can tell, it's still got plenty of different bolt holes. This requires shaft locker. You cannot run a stud mount. You can tell there's different extra bolt holes that are added for the shaft system. There, and there. That just makes things stronger. There's also other ones as well, but hopefully you get the idea. This is like a one-piece bar that sits across. It's very, very sturdy. Nice piece. I know MB brags about bazillion different bolt holes to hold it down, but yes, this will work for 99% of you. But anyway, let's flip it over and we can look at the other features for this head, and I'll tell you my good and bad. Don't worry, I'm going to show you flow numbers. There's your intake ports. And now the big blocks, I should point this out, and this is going to be hard to see with this head, but we have two different port designs in every big block Chevy head. We have a long runner and a short runner, and they're hitting the chamber or the cylinder at a different angle. So the short one's smashing goes like this. As you can tell from it's entered here, it goes that way. The cylinder is here, so it's actually smashing into the wall there. The long runner is the one that typically they advertise because it flows more, because it actually curves. So the cylinder is actually here, and it's going following the curve of the cylinder. So it typically flows better, the long one versus the short runner. So when I lift this up and you see their designs, this is the short runner, that one's the long runner. So it doesn't look as big as what you think. And this is going to be really hard to capture with the camera, but I'm going to do it in a second. Look right there where my finger is. See that? Let me get some light and I'll show you better. There you can see it better. See that lump right there? That lump is pushrod clearance. Now this is what gets me about this head, and I do not quite understand this. That lump is for pushrod clearance. So one of the things that confuse me is this. That's all the slot you got. So you can only run a 3/8 hole, a pushrod through anyway without doing some grinding. And as you saw, they had to do that just to clear it. Now this is on the short one. On an SR20, makes no sense to me. This is my SR20. You can tell I'm way larger. I don't have a lump there, and I can run a much larger push rod. So I don't know if AFR somehow altered this or because of the 18 degree, but this looks like a much smaller slot to run it, and it's into their program to do that, which is, to me, is strange. I don't get it. I wish I could see the CAD drawings to see why it did that way. I just don't understand why it's that way. But there's your short runner, and here's your long runner. The long runner typically flows better. So, but this will give you a better view anyway. This is nice. So here we have the long runner, and here we have, sorry about the jumping around, the short runner. The long runner typically flows better, but we'll see that in a minute. The chamber size on this is really small. These are 96 cc's. The SR20s are typically about 100 to 106. I think they advertise 96 with titanium, but part of the reason why this is smaller is because when you flatten out the angle with an 18 degree, your chamber gets smaller. So from a 20 to an 18, your chamber should get smaller. But yeah, it's a nice chamber. Love the chamber. You know what I don't like? There's very little vein at all on this head. And what I mean by this is you'll see when I show you my SR20. There should be a vein that comes off this way. Should be a vein that comes off this way. It helps the air transition. It's worth a few CFM. It hurts nothing. It's not some stupid vein that like LS has put in that face the wrong direction to kind of cheat up airflow. No, that actually would be great if it was faced correctly, if they had enough material. Now, it's not like AFR just like, oh my gosh, they botched it. There's probably nothing in the casting for them to port. So when they designed it, they just didn't put anything there. You need a vein. It would have helped out. You probably would have gained some more CFM. Definitely worth it to do. You can tell the valve job looks really great. They do theirs on a single point cutter. Looks fantastic. 50 degree job on intake, 55 degree on exhaust, which is weird because Brodix puts a stock They put at least a copper alloy for the exhaust because of the 55 degree AFR, 55 degree steel insert. By the way, though, I will say this before you get too panicky. AFR offers these in copper beryllium on both. And I'm not just talking a copper alloy, copper beryllium, the good one, very expensive. They offer that. So if you like that for an upgrade. So if you're doing titanium valves, highly recommend. By the way, I think these are the same heads that Alex Taylor runs on her car, her 55. So we know they make steam, at least on boost. And I know there's been several of them made over 1,000 anyway, but that's that. Let me show you the exhaust port real quick. Put this down. Sorry, let me grab a light. Here's your exhaust port. It's a beautiful looking exhaust port. It's nice. It's raised up, as you can tell from the deck. It's raised up. Oddly enough, though, the intake's higher. So this intake's higher with 18 degree, but the exhaust is not any higher than the SR20. It's still the same height up. And it probably did that because of header clearance, because, you know, just to help people so they don't have to buy some custom header because it raised up. I will say it looks like it's lower because of all this material above it. That's just material that's added. But the actual height from here down and here down are about the same as the Brodix. So it's not raised up or anything more than what the Brodix is. So and there's that. And I'll keep saying Brodix. I'm just trying to give you both so you get an idea about the SR20 style, and someone asked anyway. But anyway, there's that. Let's look at the flow numbers. Here are the flow numbers. Now, as a warning, these are from my flow bench. I know AFR claims higher, but they're not the only ones. Just about everybody that mass produce heads, they don't flow that on my bench. Now, I flowed them on my Signs Digital 680. I could have flowed them on the Superflow 750. They would have been about 8 CFM higher, just how they are. Still, I don't know if it's what they claim or not. I didn't love to see beforehand. But we'll start off the long runner. Remember, I got the long runner here, the better flowing one. At 400, 328. Wow. 500, 394. 600, 441. And it goes at 700, 467. And it peaks at 473 at 800. Then it actually backs up. As you can tell, it goes from 473 to 467 to 470. There's an airspeed issue going on. Because I told you this port sounds like it's big. It's not big. It's not at all big. When I show you my SR20 head, you're going to see that. That's big. This is not big. It needs to be bigger in some areas because you can actually hear it whistling and getting louder on the bench, and it's not happy. So I recorded it, so here's what it sounds like. AFR, big block Chevy, 18 degree Magnum head. Long port, so this is the best flowing one. I've got it set up at 600 valve lift, and you'll listen to it what it sounds as I flow all the way up. So we go from 600 up. Don't worry, I'll show a flow sheet later. Let me turn it on. As a flow at 1 inch, as you can tell, it backed up. Here's the flow numbers for it. Peaked at 473. Not bad, really good down low though. So as you can tell, it needs some work. You're like, well, why don't you work it? It feels like, just me judging from inside, it feels kind of thin in some areas, and I don't even know if that you entirely could, especially on the short side, because I'm looking through here, that's at the bottom of the short side. So there's not a whole lot of material where it seems like I could work. I'd have to play with it, but I sure hate to ruin this thing because it costs too much. Anyway, the short runner. Camera's gonna focus, there we go. Short runner goes 325 at 4, 387 at 5. That's good. 424 at 6. 453, and it peaks at 461. That's it. Kind of got at 9, 461, and then 461 at 1. And before someone says, no one's running 1 inch of cam, of all the heads that people run 1 inches of cam on, these ones. The SR20 style heads, they're always in the 900 or above. Not always, but a large majority. If you're running less than, say, 800 lift on an SR20 style head, your cam guy's an idiot. Because one time I did a set of Dart Pro 120s. It's like the SR20. It's their version of SR20s. Did a nice setup, right? Sold them to a guy to do a tractor pull thing. It's a 533 cubic inch engine. Goes to this whiz bang custom cam guy. That dude puts a 730 lift cam in the thing. And it flowed 510 CFM at 1 inch. And he had a 730 lift cam where it flowed 450. That's dumb. Anyway, here's your exhaust side. This is without an exhaust pipe. I don't float with exhaust pipes. 239 at 4, that's really good. And it peaks at 320. Not bad, so really good work there. Overall, this head is not like one of your too big to work with most stuff. It's, like I said, it's a moderate sized port. It's probably really good for torque because the port itself is consistent as far as the sizing through, so it doesn't have like big areas where it gains. So it's probably really good for torque. I bet it probably gives up some at top, although some people are probably like, no, I made 1,000 something with a 632. Probably could, but running the bigger SR20s, you probably can make like a 1,200. Not knocking the head. It's good. It truly is. It's good for what it is. And I should point out this, and I should have done it to start with. AFR sent me this head. I didn't buy it. They were happy enough to send it for me to test. I'm just giving an honest review. So take that with a grain of salt, but I'm not knocking the head. It's a really good head, but it's definitely more of the smaller size SR20 style heads I have seen. And there are smaller ones that they use for dirt late model stuff, but this one's smaller. Definitely, you probably could get away with the smaller cubic inch engines, like a 582 on this type of deal. Great power and stuff. But that's that head, just to kind of give you an idea. Let me show you some of the differences on my SR20. So you could say, man, that looks, and I'm not trying to do it to sell my SR20. I'm saying to show you that this seems big, but it ain't big. It's great for the guys wanting less RPMs, smaller engines, just to show you, just for a comparison. Okay, this is my SR20 head, and they're still doing some more development on it, so it's not quite finished. But anyway, you could tell. So this is a vane. See the vane? Look at my short runner. See the vane? Missing. See, they come off. They just don't go flat. They don't do that. We have veins. That actually helps flow, okay? But also you could tell, look how big my port is compared to theirs. So when I say theirs is the AFR is a more moderate sized port, there's a head bolt here, and here, right? And they didn't break through either one on the long port. Now look at mine. That hole right there is that head bolt. That hole right there is that head bolt. That should give you how wide mine is and how big it is across. Now this is a bigger intake valve on the 2.425 compared to the 2.4. I'm also a 55-degree seat and 55 exhaust. They're a 55 exhaust as well, but you can tell. Even the short runner, which this one's been redesigned. So this is the old style one. I mean, just to give you some lighting. I mean, you could tell compared to that. That's much smaller compared to this one. Although I didn't break through on the rocker stuff side because I didn't raise it up like they did. But my chamber's bigger compared to this. I mean, that's an easy way to say, but yeah, you could just tell it's bigger. I mean, it's huge. This is definitely made for a 632, turning some RPM. And the reason why it flows more is it's also bigger, but we'll see that in a second too. But even if you look at just the intake port itself, I mean, yes, I've got veins in the bottom too. I'll kind of show you that. Bear with me here. Because my port's so big, I added them. See the wing in the bottom? I love this long port. It's probably my most proud one. I'm really proud of that. Let me move the light a little bit. There we go. I'm really proud of that. That long port is just about damn near as perfect as I can make it. This short port, it's giving me problems. It doesn't flow as well. I did a redesign, so I've got to send it off, get digitized this old one. It's not bad, which I'll show you its flow numbers in just a minute, but it's hard to make it as good as this. It won't even get close. But yeah, I did something that definitely makes it better, especially in some lift points. This one still beats it at the peak by like 1. But everywhere else, there's some spots where the new design beats it by 10. But let's look at the exhaust port just to also show you the comparison in size on that. I mean, you could tell this thing's big compared to the AFRs. My exhaust port is huge because I made for bigger engines compared to theirs. Now, I'm not trying to brag on my stuff. I'm really truly not, because the AFR thing is really, really good. I'm just saying theirs is definitely more the moderate. And even as big as mine is, remember mine, both of these are essentially standard spacing. They now have ones, like they've had them out for a while, where they have them moved over. So there's a move spacing one that moves over even further, so they could put a bigger intake valve, like a 2450, and still maintain the 20-degree style. Then those go like 530. And now Brodix offers, like I said, that 18-degree version that they have that's a 2.55 or 2.520 intake valve and a 1.838 valve. So they really move things. And that's at 18-degree. And that port's way larger than even this thing. So this seems big compared to that, but it ain't nothing compared to the other ones. And those definitely do move some air. But let's see how this compares. So let me show you the flow numbers just to kind of give you an idea of how these compare with the big size compared to the more moderate size. Not knocking AFR, just showing you. So here we could compare the long ports. So here's the AFR on this side, and this is mine. So if you look at 400, the AFR is 328, and I'm 324, so it's beating me. At 500, they're 394, I'm 395. So I'm up a little bit there, but after that, it's all over. 600, they're 441, I'm 452. 700, 467, 473. 800, 472, 485. 900, they're 467, I'm 502. 1 inch, 470 to 514. So, and by the way, this is on my signs. If I float on that dude, it's gonna go 425. Exhaust, we're not the same. So definitely I'm worse at 2, I'm worse at 3, I'm worse at 4, 5 I'm still worse, 6 I'm worse by 10, at 7 I'm go 315, now I'm winning, 335 at 8, 346 at 9, 353. So I'm bad here at the beginning, great at the end. That's why I like for reversion. That's the long port. This is the short port, the old design. So the new design's a little bit better, not so much at the peak by 1 or 2 CFM, but the others are way better. So here we go. They're at 500, they're 325, I'm 319. So yeah, I'm down 5. Sorry, at 400. At 500, they're 387, I'm 391. They're 424, I'm 435. 453 at 7 to my 461. And then we'll just skip all the way in there. 461 at peak, and I'm 481. The new one goes right at 490. So actually, I take that back. It's a little bit better because this is 489 at 1.1. But the new port's just a little bit better. It's just hitting 490. I cannot get it to the 500. I'm just out of time and frustration. And trust me, I've epoxied a bunch of places as good as I can get it without going stupid. But yes, it's better, but it's also way bigger. Also on 55-degree seat compared to 50. But anyway, not trying to beat my own horn. I was just trying to show you a comparison because this would not be a fair if you like looked at this. If you compare it to any conventional small big block Chevy head, like even their 385, this kicks the living dog crap out of it. All right, it's a fantastic head. The SR20 heads will beat any of the conventional heads. But once you get to the SR20 style, this is definitely more the moderate one. So Alex Taylor really runs fast with it with boost, and maybe it's because it's smaller port, so there are probably lesser strokes. So this works out better for it. But it's a great head, but you cannot compare it to the bigger ones. So, but anyway, Guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this video, and hopefully I don't lose too many subscribers. Guys, remember, I'm no Superman. I don't port cast iron heads. I did race Superboy. You guys take care.